are probably most widely noted for introducing into the field of psychotherapy an idea that seems almost self-evident, which is that our behavior, our being, ourselves, are affected by our philosophies, by what we think.
Right. And also, conversely, I introduced many years ago when I first formed RET, Rational Motive Therapy, the idea that our thinking is also affected by our behavior and our feelings.
Mm-hmm. So in effect, it's all one system.
That's right. Interactional.
Mm-hmm. And that system can therefore obviously be affected by dealing with any part of it, I would assume, behavior, emotions, or cognition or thoughts.
Right, but profoundly, if you profoundly change your philosophy, your thinking, then you're more likely, in all probability, to profoundly change your feeling and your behavior, especially your disturbed feeling and your disturbed behavior.
And you drew on the ancient philosophers and sort of coming to the notion that philosophy itself could be a form of psychotherapy. At that point, you broke away from psychoanalysis and developed a form of cognitive therapy.
Yes, I practiced and was a psychoanalyst for a while, but then I discovered that it didn't work, and I have a gene for efficiency, while poor Sigmund Freud had a gene for inefficiency. So I went back to my hobby since the age of 16, philosophy, the philosophy of the ancients, largely of Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, and in the East of Confucius and Lao Tse and Buddha, and amalgamated it with behavior therapy, which I had used on myself at the age of 19 to get myself over my phobia of public speaking and of approaching young females.
Mm-hmm. Well, if I could get to the kernel of your thought, it is basically that whatever happens to us in life, it's not totally responsible for our emotions.
Right. It's partly, it contributes to it. A, activating events contribute to C, consequences in our gut, but it's B, our belief system, our philosophy, which mainly, largely, or certainly in great part, makes us feel and think the way we do, especially think and, I should say, behave the way we do, especially in a disturbed manner. We disturb ourselves.
And typically, I suppose, when a person is very angry or very depressed, they almost always think that it's something outside that's causing that.
Right. And we normally, and I think biologically, tend to think that because, see, consequences, my anger immediately follows you are treating me unfairly, that you made me angry instead of you made me feel sorry and regretful to some degree, but my anger I added by commanding and demanding that you not do what you indubitably did.
And in a sense, if I'm right, you broke with Freud in suggesting that the parents aren't responsible, early upbringing isn't responsible, that we teach ourselves these kinds of neurotic behaviors.
Right. We're born gullible to our parents, influenceable, teachable in the first place. Therefore, we stupidly listen to our parents, but then we invent many must, shoulds, ought, demands, commands, in addition to the standards, the values that we adopt from our parents. But the standards don't upset us. We mainly upset ourselves with those Jehovian commands.
Yeah. You've used the term, I think you must have coined it, musturbation.
Right. That masturbation is good and delicious, but musturbation is evil and pernicious, is one of my sayings.
And musturbation is when we tell ourselves, I must do this, or things must be this way, even though they're not.
Right. The three main musts are I must do well, or I'm no good. You louse, must treat me well, or you're worthless and deserve to roast in hell. And the world must give me exactly what I want, precisely when I want it, or it's a horrible, awful place.
It would be awful.
It would be terrible. Right. Because of the must. If you didn't masturbate, then you wouldn't awfulize, terribilize, catastrophize, say, I can't stand it, and put yourself down. If you're only stuck with, I'd like very much to do well, but I never have to, then you wouldn't then disturb yourself.
Yeah. So the technique that you get engaged in with your clients is one of disputing their musts, their ideas, and showing them that logically, scientifically, philosophically, things are not that way, that nothing must be if it isn't.
The technique is the scientific method, and we say, and we're the only cognitive behavioral therapy which does say, that when you think anti-scientifically, devoutly, really piously, dogmatically, which is inflexible and anti-scientific, then you disturb yourself. Therefore, we use the flexible scientific method to get you philosophically and otherwise to undisturb yourself.
Now, many people, I think particularly the Freudian school of therapy, would suggest that simply being told by your therapist that you're thinking things wrong isn't going to make a bit of difference, that you'll continue with the same old behaviors anyway.
And we would agree that being told it or told where you got it, which you didn't get it from your sacred mother and father, won't help you. But the insight that I made myself disturbed, I foolishly listened to my mother and father and took them too seriously, and I'm still doing it, and that now I require work and practice to give up my biological and sociological tendency to disturb myself. That will help you, not the belief that I disturb myself and that I don't have to. That'll help, but not that much.
Yeah. Well, doesn't the idea that if you can simply change your philosophy, that your whole behavior will change, somehow go against the behaviorist concept or the materialist notion that the mind doesn't really influence matter? In effect, you're saying that our mind will influence
very significantly, but we also say that since you worked at this foolish philosophy, ingrained it in yourself, conditioned yourself, that therefore it requires work and practice to give it up, and it requires feeling against it. So we always use cognitive thinking and emotive, dramatic, evocative, and behavioral techniques to get people comprehensively to change and to stay changed.
In effect, what you say is that every emotional state has its concomitant belief system.
Right. That even sorrow and regret, which would be appropriate emotions when you're not getting what you want, have the belief system, it's too bad, isn't it unfortunate, while horror and depression has it's awful, and it must not be this way, and I can't bear it. So, and each of the negative self-defeating states, such as depression or anxiety or despair or rage, has some individual difference in what you tell yourself, what you believe philosophically.
So, in a sense, the heart of your philosophical approach then is to distinguish between what we might call appropriate philosophies, appropriate emotions, and inappropriate ones.
And oddly enough, I discovered after years of doing rational emotive therapy, RET, that there only are a few differences, and one main difference, and it's crucial, is taking a preference, a desire, a goal, a value, practically all of which are legitimate, and escalating it again, transmuting it into a demand, a should, an ought, a must, an absolute.
In other words, the most terrible thing could happen to me. Perhaps I have leprosy,
right,
or some kind of a fatal disease, or I think, as you pointed out, maybe somebody is slowly torturing me to death.
Right.
And that doesn't necessarily justify me going into a state of a depression.
Or of horror.
Or of horror.
But it does justify you saying, I don't like this, I wish it weren't so, what am I going to do about it? Which you won't do if you're horrified. You'll freeze and make yourself worse. So you control largely, not completely, your emotional destiny and your behavioral destiny, and if you change your basic philosophy of life, then you can change it. You have the power to do so, but you normally sit on your rump and don't use that power.